This is Phantom Electric Ghost. We're live on the air with Katie Baker for the first time. Welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we love to talk to people from around the world. The first time we have you on the show today, we let people know we have a QR code up there to check out Podmatch. We use Podmatch to book guests. You can check that out and see what opportunities you have for your podcast or you're a guest that wants to be on podcast. You can check that out. And then what we like to do before we get to the heart of your story, we ask every guest a couple questions. A couple questions we always ask everybody is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
I think what motivates me right now is really just helping other people process through traumatic childhood events, other trauma that they have, and just work together to heal as a community. And the reason why I do what I do is because I was really driven to find a solution that helped me and really share that with others.
I think that's it's always good to pay it forward. I find is like
Mhm.
people you talk to authors, talk to creators, the people who have created like have a vision, and when they have that vision, trying to pay forward their own personal experiences and things, lessons learned, and I think it's really cool when people do that because it feels authentic because you're
Mhm.
sharing like your vulnerability and teaching people like what you've learned in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like man, I don't know how far back you want to go with your story, but I know you talked about hitting rock bottom, and a lot of people kind of start like wherever they start, but usually it's like a crucible moment that happens to them, and then they take that and they use that as a launching pad for like the next phase of their life.
Yeah. Yeah, so I hit rock bottom really at 47 years old. Um, by all outside appearances, I looked like I had my life together. Honestly, I had a great job, started a couple nonprofits, and they were doing really well. I was working though 60 plus hours a week, very passion driven. What I
Mhm.
discovered through this process was that was another way to numb and not think about just the past. And it was a way for me to run from my past. And was drinking every night, really, because anytime I would sit and silence my mind, it got really uncomfortable. So I would pick up, a beer and then have another. And so it was like this almost repetitive Groundhog Day. And I think that I almost, was just a detached from life. I was kinda going through the motions, and so we were at a family reunion, with my kids. It was a large family reunion. In particular, our family reunions, you drink all day, all night. That was what we did, and we did it really well, and, had, some pretty funny stories to tell. But my son, who was 18 years old at the time, kind of sat by me at the fire pit, and I was sitting by myself at the time, and I was pretty deep into, drinking all day. And we would, couple it with energy drinks just so we could stay awake. And he sat down next to me and he said, Mom, we can all tell that you're really struggling right now. And I don't know how you survived the childhood you did. And now that, you know, both my children were raised, he said, "You why don't you spend a year and focus on yourself and try to heal?" And he said, "We have your back. We love you, and I think it's your turn now." So when he said that initially, I really struggled with it, to be honest. It was really quite beautiful because it came from such a place of love
Mhm.
and care and not like a judgment, you know?
Yeah,
But also when your kids see, like, I thought I was doing such a good job hiding
and your kid
from.
can see it. They can see all
Yeah.
right through you.
Yeah, he saw it, he knew what was happening, and my daughter the same, and my husband at different times. But I think in particular when my son had said it, it was like the last of the immediate family members, and I knew, "Okay, I have to go and, figure this out," because I did have time, both my kids were off to school or had moved out, and, I thought, "Okay, now I can kinda." I think too what was happening at that point was that both my children were leaving the home and I had to redefine myself. Like, who am I without mothering them? And that can be a really scary prospect for an individual, couples, the list goes
Yeah,
on.
empty nest is always a struggle because, like, if you've
Yeah.
kinda pushed yourself down
Mhm.
and you've been, like, sacrificing what you want for your children's success, when they suddenly are gone from the nest, he's like, "Well, what am I gonna do now?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea, and so, when he said that, that was sort of that moment, that crucible moment where I was like, "Okay, it's gotta change," and what I had said to him is I was like, "Maybe you're right, I should set up appointments with therapists." I had gone for a number of years to therapists and really tried everything, but I was really great at telling them, "I'm okay. I'm okay."
Mhm.
And that was just a way that I didn't really have to address or talk about the things that were impacting me because in my life, I was raised sort of this cowboy creed: you buck up, you just keep going, you don't look back, and you don't admit to what happened, you just keep your mouth shut. And so I thought that's how you processed sort of trauma, grief, all the things. You just pushed ahead, and it just sort of I call it encased in the amber of my history because at that point I was almost fossilized.
Yeah, it's kinda like the ethos of, kind of like an American individualism and this
Mhm,
idea, like, "Oh, you suck it up." You push it down, you just you get back you get up and you don't think about it, but, like, the creative kinda ethos is that you show your vulnerability. Like, if you're an
mhm,
artist, I'm a musician, the whole point of people really know when you're being honest. When you're a musician, you can immediately get the feedback, when they know it when it feels contrived, it feels fake.
mhm.
Well, that's not really authentic, and you won't get a good reaction.
Yeah,
And we've kind of been told, like, in business and stuff, you put this, like, mask on,
mhm,
it's like your business self, and then
mhm,
they want, sometimes the corporate world wants your business self to be your total self. Like,
mhm.
you gotta put that on 90% or 120% of the day.
Yeah, 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 and I think the thing was uh I was really good at wearing masks, and people that I had been friends with for 30 years when I wrote the book were like, "I had no idea, no idea." And I think it's just because that's what I was really talented at, was putting on those masks and letting people see what I wanted them to see.
I mean, do you get, like, in the short term, you're kind of rewarded, maybe in the immediate moment, like, you're able to get things done. You're kinda able to push through, but eventually what happens is, like, it just keeps on building up until you get to this, like, crucible moment. It's like your whole soul gets fed up, and then you
Mhm.
have to, like, "Well, what are you gonna do now?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, absolutely, and that's exactly what happened where, when he sort of addressed, like, what was happening with me, my son in particular, then I was like, "Okay, I'm not doing a good job at hiding this anymore." And it's just a matter of time. I mean, I was eating poorly, I was drinking every night, I was working a ton of hours, I was super stressed to the max, and I prided myself on all my accomplishments. Like, look, I'm doing all this, so
Mhm.
don't look over here.
Yeah, "Don't look here." Yeah, well, that
Mhm.
tends to be, like, the whole point of wearing the mask is, like, "Look, like, I'm" like, the perfection trap.
Mhm.
And the perfection trap is like, "Oh, I gotta keep up with the Joneses. I gotta have this thing. I gotta be in the box, right? I gotta fit that box. I gotta, all the checklists ticked off. I'm doing it." But then when you really look in the looking glass self, like, I'm into Victorian poetry, it was like, that's like, are you happy with that person in the mirror?
Yeah.
Can you actually look at that person and say, "Hey, I like me,"
Mhm.
or do you not do that? And then, like, when you start to do that, that's a hard question to ponder.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, and, if I'm gonna be totally honest, I never looked at myself in the mirror. I would,
Mm.
like, kinda, get ready for the day or whatever, but I never looked at myself in the eyes. It was way too uncomfortable, and I talk about that in really the last chapter of the book. It's like to get to that point where you can look yourself in the eye and not look away.
In your book, there's, like, "When the Universe Holds Your Hair Back," right? That's the title?
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
And, Like, how did you get that title?
Yeah, I think it's really a metaphor, right? So the journey I chose to take to actually heal was different than a lot of folks might choose because I use therapeutic psychedelics in the healing process. And I think that when you go into those experiences, especially when it's very much an unknown, you have to trust in the universe. Like you got my back because
Mm,
I might lose it for a little bit, and so it was really the deeper meaning and kind of like the humor that, like holding your hair back and what that
yeah,
means here in
kinda,
our
yeah,
society. Yeah, but it was
yeah.
like a different kind of hold my hair back because I'm gonna let loose. So
Yeah, it's hard to get past these, we build these kinda walls within ourselves, the ceilings, like,
hmm
we build our own glass ceilings, like, we build our own box, and then we gotta break out of it, and, sometimes it's hard to do that without some assistance from, like, a therapist or therapeutics, and, like, each individual has to know what can I do? Right?
hmm
Can I do it all with, like, I'm a Buddhist, so I do a lot of breathing exercise, meditation, but some people are like, I can't get into meditation. I can't get into the breathing. They just can't do it. They need something else. So did you, like, try things and say, "Hey, maybe I need to look at something that'll actually help me break through these barriers?"
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was multifaceted for sure because I had tried, exercise, yoga, breathing to some extent. I didn't really know, especially like prior to embarking on this year of healing. Like I would try it and then kind of get like, this isn't working. But it was really me, right? In the state that I was
Mhm.
in. But when I decided to really dive in and be like, okay, I got to figure this out, I did include therapy and yoga and meditation and journaling, which is kind of how I got, great portions of the book
With your
done.
book, yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right and dedicate an entire year and see what happens.
But I think that dedicating a year that's a hard thing, so some people don't find a way to give themselves that kinda time.
Mhm,
'Cause, like, they're so caught up in this kind of, structure of a society, like, they might be they're in the middle of their career,
mhm.
and they're like, "I can't do this because it'll wreck my progress." So they don't know how to do that, so you gave yourself some time.
Yeah. Well, I'd say I gave myself some time and I didn't give myself some time because I was still working as an executive director of a nonprofit. I was working a lot of hours still. So I was
Oh, okay.
trying to almost live that previous life and
Oh,
then step into the new one. So I would, let's say, travel and go somewhere for an experience, and then I would come home and immediately just jump right back into work. One of
mm,
the experiences I chronicle in the book was I had hosted a large event where we took over a building in downtown and, had an all day event. It was pretty massive. And then I jumped on a plane the very next day to go to a retreat. And so I would always, I feel like in the beginning, show up totally frazzled, trying to live my foot in both worlds.
you try
And
to try to
so,
hold on to
yeah.
it's like it's hard to do that, to the balancing act we kind of put in because, like, sometimes, like I said before, like, your career wants you to do 120%. Like, I live
Mhm,
in the software kinda IT world or all these kinda tech gurus, and their mindset is like, you gotta give everything to the company, to,
mhm,
like, the startup, and
mhm,
they don't wanna hear that you have a band. They don't wanna hear that you're writing a novel on the side or you're doing something. They want, like, oh, like, 200% attention on what you're doing.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, and because I decided to take this path, I mostly kept it secret. It was like, just because number 1, I needed to do that for myself just to get through it without others' judgment.
Mhm.
Because I was, busy enough judging myself. I didn't need other people's
Other people
opinion.
jumping on. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
and
everybody's yeah, if you start writing a book, it's like, "Well, how do you have time to write a book?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how
you
do you have
should be
time to
doing
do
all
something for
this.
yourself? Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go and go to the gym, and now like where I'm gonna do like once you start doing stuff, you start figuring out like I need time for me,
Mhm.
and you start basically creating like boundaries. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times people don't have boundaries. They don't have boundaries within themselves, right? To like understand like what is it they actually like, are they a people pleaser? Do they create that line? It's like I'm not gonna do that. Well, it's
Mhm.
hard to just go from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to figure out like, well, how do I kind of ease into this? Because I
Mhm.
like a lot of times it seems like everybody wants a 10-step program to be done in 30 days and it's done. Right.
Yeah.
Some things are like it's incremental and you're gonna have to stick with it. And if it's not sustainable, then it's not gonna work.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I did what I did because I approached the year of healing just like I did most things in my life, like tackle it gung ho, just, move forward, conquer, um, get stuff done. And I think that in hindsight, it was really, I made it way more painful than, yeah, it was way harder because I tried to keep doing as much as possible. I was and seeking that perfectionism and
Mm.
working on boundaries. Like I was so involved in the community that I spent a lot of time around a lot of different people. And sometimes at a certain point, especially along that journey, it was like, it's just not the same vibration, especially when I quit drinking, for example. That
Yeah.
was really hard because I worked in, with uh bars and restaurants and all sorts of things. So that was very much um, just what I did and who I worked around, and you know it was just common to go to happy hour and that kind of stuff, and so it really changed a lot. And I had a drinking problem at one point, so I spent time with people that also had drinking problems because it was acceptable for us all to hang out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like if you grow out of a phase, or if you were radiating a frequency, right? You had a vibe,
Mhm.
like you're like you're drinking vibe. Like so, your friends or they're radiating at the same frequency as you. As long as you're in that drinking mode, you're cool. But once you get out of that, then
Mhm.
it's like anything. Like if you were like a gambler and you get out of gambling, like a lot of your friends are probably going to Vegas, right?
Mhm.
And then suddenly you're not in Vegas anymore. It's like, well, because I can't really do that, you
Yeah.
know. So eventually, sometimes you evolve out of that circle
Mhm.
unless they're willing to like not deal with you only in that situation. If they can deal with you in new situations and they don't bring you back to that, then maybe you can be with them. But if they can't, then you kind of evolve and move ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody I read somewhere at one point, it's like more socially acceptable to tell someone that you've quit drinking dairy as opposed to alcohol, because there's a lot of judgment, right? Because
Yeah.
people want you hanging with them
And
and
when
doing the
well,
same
you're no fun.
activities.
Like you're not fun
Yeah.
anymore to
Yeah.
a lot of people because it's fun. I mean, but they don't realize like it might be fun, but you're hurting yourself, right?
Mhm.
It may seem like fun, but if
Yeah.
you look at the things that in your life, it's like if you're not getting to where you want to be, right? If
Yeah.
you're not really happy, if
Mhm.
it's just like a very short term thing for like in the moment, and then it doesn't really help you long term.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me in particular, like, I really appreciate when people can just drink a glass of wine and be done, but for me, I just didn't have that gray zone. It was black or white. Once I started drinking,
And
then
you go all the
I
way in.
wanted to keep going. I didn't wanna quit, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a hard place to be because that's like when you have to realize like I have this issue with
Mhm.
this thing, and if I get around it, I can't control it.
Mhm.
Right? And there's so many things in life that are like that.
Mhm.
And once you realize, it's like yeah, and it's a lifelong like process. And sometimes people are like, oh, I fell off the wagon. I'm going to go all the way off the wagon. Or do
Yeah.
you realize like, hey, maybe I don't have to go from 0 to 100. Like I know I have to deal with this.
Mhm.
And you gotta give yourself some grace.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's, like, the goal is ultimately to master something, right? to not let it master you. But for me in particular, I made the New Year's resolution like I'm not going to drink alcohol anymore because at a point I was trying to do both, like the year of healing and then, slow down on the drinking. And then, but I recognized I'm like, I just can't. When I took breaks in between and didn't do it every single day, what I recognized is like, I feel awful. I feel like, how did I live like this for years? I mean, it was ridiculous. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that, and then I just started feeling so much better. And then I was like, I don't even want to drink one night a week because I know what I'll feel like the next day.
Yeah, you
And
start to see the consequences, right? Because
yeah,
you're in it, you can't see it,
hmm,
right?
totally.
You have to
Yeah,
kinda get away from it.
yeah, yeah. And step back and be like, I don't, need to watch TV and drink every night. Like, what if I read a book? And
Yeah,
there's like a whole
or
other
you write a
world.
book, like, you started writing
Yeah,
a book. The creative exercise for me is like music. It was my therapy, but, like, it's very cathartic for a lot of, like, musicians, is, like, the act of just even rehearsing
mhm,
is kinda we get to go through the cobwebs, to go through all the stuff. It's kinda like the looking glass self. We go into ourselves and kinda do it, and I've talked to writers and painters, any kind of creative, when you start to do that, like, assessment that makes you take something from the inside and then put it outside yourself, then you actually now you can actually look at, "What did I write?"
mhm,
What did I put down? Like, "What's in my journal?" And then you start to actually ask yourself questions that might be pretty kinda hard, you
mhm.
know, because that's the process. If you let some folks, they're told to, like, push it down, but if once you start putting it on the page or putting it out in the world, then you can't really push it down anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, I started doing energy work too, and I was like, I can't drink the night before. You're right. I couldn't write a book because it would take focus. And, when I would wake up the next day, if I'd been drinking, it was really too easy to procrastinate. And so that was one of the harder things I had to do though, through this whole experience was quit drinking because
Mm,
it was kinda the devil I knew, and, addiction can be really challenging to navigate, and especially when, it's like you don't just have the addiction itself, you've built community around the addiction.
yeah, a whole
So
kind of societal structure around it. Like, there's a
mhm.
whole artifice of drinking.
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
it's the friends, it's the scene, it's the short term, like,
Mhm.
bump to your system, and then you like but then you get the shame and the silence, sometimes after, like, "Oh, wow, why did I do that?" "And I
Mhm.
don't feel good now," right? And now I gotta suffer that. But, like, it's always just this, like, bad loop. You get
Mhm.
stuck in this bad loop, you keep on doing the same things, like, "Why am I doing that?" And
Yeah.
it's hard to pull out of that. I mean, people get stuck in these loops all the time. I mean, that's kinda like why why they're therapists. They think why there's other there are means of trying to fix it because, like, everybody's got some kind of bad loop.
Totally. Yeah, it's like a shame cycle. So I had to really start thinking through like what am I doing to create shame in my life? Because as I said in the book, I think, I grew up with abuse, but at certain points we become our own perpetrators, our own abusers. And that's the stuff that I really started having to question.
Yeah, like, the road to healing is kind of figuring out, like, what have I hidden and
Mhm.
why is it hidden?
Yeah.
And can it get to the light of day without the shame the persecution of the self? You look at yourself, "Oh, I" people get, like, is it all regret, or can you get to a point where we can actually make some progress and say, "Hey, this has happened, but now we can take it and learn from it and move forward," instead of we going back and being in the resentment phase of, like, why this happened, or why am I why how does that go about in the healing process for you?
Oh, that was a biggie. I think that what I mentioned about being, sort of fossilized, right? Stuck in that loop, that pattern, shame every single day, and then a lot of, people that struggle with hard experiences develop addictions, right? Because it is a way for them to cope, right? through not thinking and numbing. But I think that for me, I started kind of feeling like, well, a couple things. When a year later, after I had gone through my experience, what I started to feel was better. It was hard though, because I felt like I was almost like, I feel like I was a good wife, a good parent, but I almost felt like I was going through the motions of what does a good parent look like.
Mm,
And it was almost a reconnection of all these emotions that I hadn't felt in years, maybe since I was a toddler, right? Because I had just disconnected all of those. And and so it could be, I mean, or it was a little bit of a painful process, because I remember the first time I felt joy when I was probably 48 years old, and I was like, what is this feeling? I had no idea it existed, and I was like, I think this is joy. Holy, what is happening? And so when I kind of started making it out of shame, addiction, internally telling myself this is my story, it's never going to be any different. When I started to kind of break out of that, I would recognize, like, I'm grateful. I made it out alive. Maybe just barely, is what I felt like, when my son and my family members approached me, but I had made it out. And I also survived. Like, a lot of people that grew, my relatives that grew up, some of my cousins, they didn't make it. They're
mhm.
still in and out of the penal system. They're, have horrible addictions, and I made it out. So there was a lot of gratitude for that, because I was very fortunate to, I think the buck up mantra that, was all about hiding, past trauma, actually kind of served me. It came back and served me in, like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to give myself a year. I'm going to give it my all, and I'm going to make it through, because
Mhm.
the others, I know what the other side looks like.
Yeah.
It's like sitting watching Bridgerton, drinking, 3 beers every night or whatever. I know what that looks like, but I want to see what this other path looks like. And so I think for me, it's just like you get out and you're like, number one, I survived. Number two, I have a story to tell. Number three, I have grit. And number four, I'm grateful, because I also grew up really poor. We never had money. A lot of divorces, a lot of different forms of abuse. And it's like, now I have a family and I'm really proud of all that I've accomplished. But, up until that year, I wasn't even able to see that, you
Yeah.
know?
So, how much of a role did the psychedelics play in kind of like this kind of rebirthing? I've heard people, people kind of able to find joy, like they're able to find something they hadn't felt like 10, decades. Like
Yeah.
to break through some things that allow you to see connections, allow you to feel things that you had kind of blocked off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a critical tool in my tool belt that helped me. And at first I was doubtful, I was fearful. I knew the legal vices super well. I like the back of my hand, but this felt sort of scary to me. It was a critical component though, because when you're in the medicine, it shuts off your default mode network and allows you to view those past traumas, some of your behaviors, with a different lens.
Mhm.
And also, so I decided I was going to do a ceremony every 4 to 6 weeks with different medicines, trained facilitators. So I traveled a lot during that period. And I was just going to explore my mind. And I knew that I had hit rock bottom. So when you hit rock bottom, you're like, I'm going to give it a shot,
Yeah, try
because
something.
what do I have to lose?
Yeah,
And I have everything to gain. This isn't, I was living like a quarter life, really, with not a lot of fulfillment. Like, I got a lot accomplished, but wasn't fulfilled by any stretch. And so, I think it allowed me, I talk in the book about the childhood trauma, how it impacted me as an adult, and how in the psychedelic ceremonies actually it came up and how I addressed it. It was not an easy year by any stretch because, like, for example, I never cried for myself. That was never like, oh, I feel so sad for myself. I'm going to cry. I would cry if other people cried, for
Mhm.
them, but not for myself. And then I found myself kind of crying about like letting stuff go. And I was, what is this? This is so uncomfortable. Like this isn't my mode of operation. And so I had to, that's the kind of stuff where I was like plugging back in all those emotions that I had forgot even existed. But medicine, the psychedelics in particular, working with an integration therapist and doing all those other tools that I mentioned in terms of writing and yoga and exercise was really one of the best healing, paths that I can think of for myself for sure.
Yeah, 'cause I think a lot of people, they feel stuck or they feel numb or they think it's too late. But like if you can always start from where you are.
Hmm.
And a lot of times people say, well, they don't think there's a path, but there's always a path, but you might have to hit that kind of rock bottom, like you hit it and say, well, then you're willing to try it. Because if you're in the middle of that bad loop, you don't see anything but the loop.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah. And I think that, the other thing that I've noticed as I kind of went to these ceremonies and met different people, veterans, police officers, women, or, there's a woman that I talk about. There was actually multiple people that were facing death and just wanted to be at peace with that. They had an
Mhm.
illness or they just, it was coming. And there was these beautiful experiences that I was able to meet these people, and what I recognized is, like, there's a lot of folks struggling out there, and we have a lot of generational trauma that have come through, or illnesses, or all these things happening in our society and world that have left us disconnected from each other, from our community, left us feeling quite lonely and scared because it's scary out there every time you open the news. And also, I really think that a lot of these medicines come from the earth, and I was used to making sure that it had a prescription label before I picked it up, or, an alcohol label before I picked it up. But I really think like, maybe Earth is providing these resources and we just need to turn our ears to the ground and listen to what's
Yeah,
available.
I mean, I'm part Native American, part Cherokee, Blackfoot, and indigenous peoples all over the world kind of knew what Gaia had, and we were kind of part of like an industrial westernized world was, oh, that doesn't mean anything. It's got to come from pharmaceutical, has to come from this doctor, has to come from logic. Right? When there was this, human history, like thousands of years, people knew what was in the
Mhm,
woods. Like they knew the mushrooms, they knew the plants, they knew the plant medicine. But
mhm.
then I kinda got lost and say, "Well, you can't trust that." So
Yeah.
there's certain people that they make a lot of money telling you you can't trust it, but, but
Mm.
they go with something else because it's what they want because they wanna direct you toward, like, what makes them, have some assets. But you have to start to think about, like, if that's not working for you, right, then maybe you should look at different things, look at like the plant medicine, look at like indigenous culture, looking at different mysticism or, people find whatever path they're going to find. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's not the, the, the known path. It's more the unknown path.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, you know, what I noticed too, or what I feel, after this experience and being connected with all these people is like the further we remove ourselves from Mother Earth, the more lost we become. And
Mhm.
so it seems like, with these industrialized societies, we're just moving farther and farther away from Earth. And, as I worked with a lot of farmers and did food system work for so many years, it's like we're poisoning our land. And then, it's like it's causing harm to not only Mother Earth, but to the individual as we get more and more lost.
Yeah, because we got people thinking like the solution is to go to Mars and live in a dome.
Hmm.
Instead of actually making sure that the earth is something that we can give to our children and our grandchildren, It's like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, forget about that. Let's go to Mars. It's like, really? It's like, I understand science, but it's like to science to the detriment, it's like, oh, you're saying this AI robot is more important than having human connection, right?
Mhm.
That we've kind of got to this world where the science fiction is getting a little out of control in terms of like you don't need human connections, you don't need people. You can just use robots and AI and put everybody in the box instead of like, why wouldn't something that comes from your own individual spirit be more valuable than what this machine comes up with?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like sometimes it feels like we're missing our mother, you know, in terms of that feminine energy, our divine mother, our mother earth, and so I think that I just keep wondering about, like, how are we gonna find ourselves or find our way back, not only to ourselves, to our hearts, but also as a society. What's gonna be the thing? And I know psychedelics in particular, maybe mushroom psilocybin or ayahuasca, might not be the solution for everyone, but I do think that it provides a lot of people with an opportunity to come home to themselves, and then when you come home to yourself, then you are able to engage with your family in different ways, and you're able to engage in your community, and you're more thoughtful in your approach, to life, and the reverence that seems to be kind of missing sometimes, with just like getting more money. How can we develop more pharmaceuticals? And so I think that might be a good idea to just kind of think through what can these teach us, you know?
Yeah, I think what it gets back to the basics of your human beings is like our social structure is dependent on like ourselves, right? It's dependent on these connections, these like physical connections, social connections, connection to the earth, right? Connection. There was all these great poets that said, the cathedral, the nature is the cathedral. That
Mhm,
you touch feet, touch soil, right?
mhm,
Because if you lose that, then you get caught up in this kind of this world where we're building these frames that don't connect to the overall planet, right? You're not connecting to your neighbor, you're not connecting to the earth, to the wind, to the sun, to the moon, anything. You're
mhm,
just connecting to these zeros and ones. And I'm like, of the cyber ether. And that seems like maybe a solution for sometimes, but it's not the 100% solution. We have people kind of like snake oil salesmen saying, "Well, this is the new way." It's like, what the way is actually inside and in the world. And if
mhm.
you go and live in your little corner, you're not really connecting with the world or
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, totally, and there seems to be, like, increasingly more and more people doing that, which is disheartening, and causes a lot of problems, like, really scary problems, and so yeah, it seems to be like a movement, it's legal in Oregon and Colorado. Some of these medicines in New Mexico seems to be moving towards that. I think they're talking about it on a national level. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I do think that we have a unique opportunity to just really explore, like, what does this all mean? And we have such a brief time here on Earth, and something's got to change. You
Well,
know.
yeah, we got to really start to look. Sometimes you have to look inward to understand the world outside yourself. And
Hmm.
some of us have had so many kind of blocks in order, like we've not been given. We don't feel we have the permission structure to do what you've done. Like you've gone through this idea like a peace and fire healing. You're kind of going through that crucible. Like you're going into, and it might be hard because I think the problem we get a lot of times is people are looking for the like the sugar, like the immediate, like the pill is going to solve everything.
Hmm.
There's this magic bullet. This magic thing's going to happen. And anything you do, like even when you're going through a psychedelic, you have to go through a process, and it's not going to get you there like 0 to 100, right? Like right from the start, right? You have to do work.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's what they say, it's like the ceremony itself is like 10%. The other 90% is when you get home, and all the changes that you have to make and what you have to look at, and when I was doing this, I mean, I think in the past, when I was really struggling, I wasn't really wanting to look at all my stuff. But over the course of the year and through the help with the medicine, I was able to really be analytical and be like, is this working? Why am I doing this? Why did I just say that? Was I judging that person? Am I judging myself? And this is really tough stuff to ask yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that it's really important. Not everybody's able to do that for multiple reasons, right? Because it's outside of our comfort level. But I think that for me was the real benefit of going, I need to look at everything, turn over every stone. And I'm constantly doing that every week. And then what I find is now it's, been 3 years since I started that year, 3 years this month, actually, when I started this year. And I feel just way more at peace, more peaceful than I've ever felt in my entire life, more appreciative of the, world I exist in, less likely to engage in stuff that infuriates me, because I recognize that I won't be able to change it. And then I have to look at, what is that creating inside of me? And if it's anger and fear and all the things, it's not like I'm, completely out of touch, but it's also like limiting that because it does impact me. And for me, I feel like I got to stay this course. I got to try to be the best version of myself so that I can help others and be the light, in whatever way I can, for others, because I do have the energy practice and I do see a lot of clients, and I want to make sure that I show up as the best version of myself as possible, and it takes a lot of work for sure. And
And like,
balance.
yeah, I mean, in terms of your lessons learned, I mean, you've had these lessons learned, you're applying them to your own life, you're trying to help other people, and I think it's really important when if life is just a process, and sometimes we get these kind of quick fix things. They get, oh yeah, yeah, 10 steps, 30 days, you're going to be done. Um, when a lot of times, like your whole life is like you have to have something sustainable in terms of like a mindset, practice, kind of awareness, right? And
Mhm,
maybe it's not easy, right? Maybe like, and we've been kind of told like, well, we're gonna make it easy, right?
mhm,
And the true lesson is like, it's not easy, but that's life. Like life is something that you're gonna have to participate in. And if you're numb, you can't. And once you're not numb, you're gonna feel things. And maybe not every day is the feeling that you want, but it's life. It's what you have to go through.
mhm. Yeah, and just to put it in perspective, like, I had a good decent life for 47 years, and some of it was really challenging, and then some of it like I said, was my own abuser, right? Because I just didn't have any, I had total lack of self-worth, because I came from that background. And so for 47 years I was kind of like a quarter of a life, getting stuff done, but not really living. And so I think that, really at 48 and now I'm 50, I found this freedom where I recognize, like, ooh, it could be this whole other way.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still challenging. It's not perfect, right? And but I get an opportunity to show up and like I'm 360 degrees different, spin me around a few times and it was like I'm totally different than the way I used to live my life, in a state of panic and fear, and
Yeah.
high-fiving myself in the rear view mirror, while forgetting some major thing, it's like I was thinking that that was a true life, but now I get to, like a friend of mine said, soul confidence for our one true life. And that's what I feel like I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah. 'Cause you're actually able to actualize into like your full self where
Mhm,
you weren't feeling yourself. Like you weren't feeling that you were all there. You're maybe kind of phoning it in, not
mhm,
feeling satisfied, maybe hitting the mark, but you weren't happy.
mhm,
So if you I think a lot of people find themselves in society where like they maybe are hitting the mark, maybe they're getting the money, maybe they have the power.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just like the millionaire trap. Is like how many of them are really happy with what they've been told that that should make them happy, the
Mhm.
money and the wealth and the power, and then they're still sitting there not happy.
Yeah.
But it's more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we see a lot of people, miserable millionaires and billionaires. And I think I just heard like a psychologist ask, like, would you want to live in their home? You know, and most of us would not want to be raised by them because we know what it takes. And so you watch them sort of, they're also existing in the world, right? And we find that oftentimes more money, more land, everything else can just leave us as hollow, if not more hollow, right?
Yeah,
Because it alienates us as an individual and when we really need to be connected with the tribe. And I don't think the point of life is like, yeah, more, more, more.
more,
I think,
more.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like because sometimes, like if you think about like an artist, is like we create art, most of us, without the expectation that it's going to make any money at all, right?
Mhm,
We do the art because we love the art. It
mhm.
happens to make money, that's fine, but it wasn't that wasn't my primary goal. A
Yeah.
lot of the pieces that we create, they don't have any monetary value to anybody, but they have a value to my soul, to my
Mhm,
spirit. They may let me go through something, and like, a lot of artists is like, it's the process of going through it, what you're doing to create the work, whether somebody gets it today or they get it 10 years from now, or they get it when you're not here, like William Blake. Like, he was a great Victorian poet. None of his poetry was known in his lifetime,
mhm.
but he still did the work.
Yeah.
Considered one of the greatest Victorian poets that wasn't known in his own time.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wrote this book and I self-published it just because, well, a couple things. I wanted to have creative freedom to write what I wanted. I didn't necessarily want to check with an editor. Number two, because there's not hardly any memoirs that I could find at the time. When I started this journey, I was like, I want to, like when you're quitting drinking, there's a ton of quit lit, that you can pick up a book and read about someone's experience, but there wasn't really about the use of therapeutic psychedelics in healing. So I
Mhm.
was like, this book needs to get out there. And also, it was a healing for myself, but I did not write this thing for money because I'll tell you what, I just gave a copy out today. So every time like someone buys a book, I give a copy away. And, it probably cost me like, honestly, like with everything, $8,000. And I'll never probably recoup that. And that's okay. It was really because I feel like the medicine in a lot of ways saved my life, and I felt indebted to Earth itself for providing these tools and resources so that I could find my way out of that dark hole.
Yeah, so you're kind of paying it forward to the universe, to everybody else to kinda get the benefit of your lessons learned and your
Mhm.
experience, and
Totally.
you put it out there into the ether, and if it if you a lot of times you write the words hoping that somebody else is gonna like, "Wow, I felt like that. Wow, I've been in that place." That's
Mhm.
the whole, like, artist mantra, like, if you're a songwriter, like, we write that story because we think other people have actually experienced that and they'll understand it. And
Yeah.
it's the same idea, it's just a lot smaller than a book. It's a
Yeah.
very short form, but it's the same idea.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's been the beauty of this, someone will read the book and be like, oh my gosh, I want to share this with my mom because I wrote a chapter about going to a psychedelic journey with my mom to heal from the childhood trauma. Or, someone will say, I felt like that. Our experiences are different, but I think a lot of people that read the book kind of recognize their story and mine, because it's like there's all different things. It's not just abuse itself, it's how do we feel as an adult. And so I think that sharing those stories was really, how can I connect with people at a heart level and be of service from the heart too.
Well, I think that's the point, like, every time we're, creatives and we put something into the world, is we wanna be able to have that vibe, have that connection to other people, and so they kinda radiate and say, "Hey, I felt that. I understand that it means something to more than just you. It means something to the whole world. And I want to let people know again that you can click on, well, you can scan the QR code and that will go right to peaceandfirehealing.com. So that's a way to use that QR code. You take your phone, and if you go to that peaceandfirehealing.com, what will you find on that website?
So that's I have Peace and Fire Healing is my energy practice. And so I have an about me page. I have a page for the book too. We do a newsletter as well. So just kind of trying to keep that healing train going and share stories or helpful tips. And then there'll be more information because I'm writing the second book now.
Oh,
So
cool. So you're still going there. You're going
yeah,
forward into to writing. So that's found a new path. So that's cool.
yeah, yeah,
Well,
totally.
I want to thank you for being on the show today. We love having people come on, especially authors, to be able to give their vision, teach from what they've learned in the written form. And we do encourage people to click on, well, scan the QR code or click on that direct URL, which will be available on the platform that we're streaming on. We've been on LinkedIn, we've been on YouTube, we've been on the Kick channel. So you can check that if you want to get more information. And I want to thank you again for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a lovely conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.